Welcome to Survivor Scale. I'm H2 Mass, and today I'm ranking every main character in Danny Boyle's 2003 tense and terrifying 28 Days Later, where a man wakes up in a country filled with ravenous killers and must learn to survive after everything he's ever known has been destroyed. We start the film with the primate strapped down to a table and being forced to watch a montage of violent footage. Hey, that sounds like me making these videos. Not the primate part. A trio of animal rights activists then walk into the room, but before they can release the captive chimpanzee, a scientist arrives and tries to call security, so they stop him and force him to explain what he's done to the animals.
The chimps are infected!
When the activist asks what kind of disease the chimps have, the scientist decides to play a game where he can only respond in one-word sentences.
Rage.
What the hell does that mean? Because the scientist didn't convey the true danger of the animals, the activists decide to release one anyway, after which it quickly jumps onto one of the activists and bites her neck, causing her to immediately throw up onto another activist and then attack the scientist, spreading the virus to several people in just a few seconds. Oh, so that's what he meant. After the most functional title card in movie history, we meet Jim waking up naked and alone in a hospital. After putting on a surgeon costume, he walks around to see if he can find anyone, but even after leaving the hospital, he just sees a bunch of empty streets. Eventually though, he picks up a newspaper, but shows poor information gathering when he doesn't read through it to learn more about his new situation. David Drayton would have read it. Jim then walks into a church where he sees a pile of dead bodies before calling out to see if anyone is still alive, which causes this creepy ass dude to wake up and stare at him. A priest then approaches Jim while swiping at some gnats, but when the priest gets close, Jim takes no chances and smacks him with his bag. He then runs outside as a bunch of other zombies chase after him and gets saved when two mysterious people throw some Molotov cocktails at the zombies and blow up a gas station. The dark duo then lead Jim to a grocery store where they introduce themselves as Mark and Selena before explaining that a virus has turned most of England's citizens into ravenous killing machines. Jim though thinks that makes them no different than before, so he tries to leave to see what's happened to his parents, but Mark and Selena show their adaptability to this new situation and tell Jim that they should only travel in the daylight and with other people. Always stick together. The next day, the three of them walk to Jim's parents' house and find Jim's parents looking like King Tut. Realizing that they don't have time to go back to the store before it gets dark, they decide to sleep at the house, and Selena shows some caution when she tells them to all sleep in the same room instead of splitting up. At night, Mark and Selena go to sleep, but in a poor display of caution and awareness, Jim lights a candle and watches an old video of his parents, which attracts a couple of zombies who break through the window and attack Jim. Mark and Selena though show some impressive urgency when they immediately kill the zombies like a gun owner who sees someone take one step onto their property. Selena then asks Jim if he got bitten, but after he says no, Mark starts looking quite guilty, so Selena takes no chances and just chops him up before telling Jim that they need to leave before more infected arrive. Hey, when they turn that fast, best not to take any chances. As they walk through the city, Selena tells Jim that she'd kill him as quickly as she killed Mark if he ever gets bitten, setting up the perfect callback for the end of the film. Mark and Selena then see some lights flickering outside of an apartment building and decide to take on the new objective. After climbing a few flights of stairs, Jim needs a break, so he and Selena catch their breath for a moment, but when a few infected start chasing them from the bottom of the building, Jim and Selena get up and run further ahead, with Selena not slowing down and leaving Jim behind. Eventually though, they encounter a man in riot gear who lets them through as he fights off the infected. After Jim and Selena enter the man's apartment, he introduces himself as Frank and his daughter as Hannah before giving some drinks to his new guests. I don't know if you should drink a green liquid from a stranger. A bit later, Jim calls Frank and Hannah good people, but Selena shows her cynicism when she tells Jim that he should care more about whether they will slow him down, because if they did, she'd leave them behind in a heartbeat. Jim though disagrees.
I wouldn't.
The next day, Frank reveals some of the problems with trying to live in this apartment and that they can't stay there for much longer. He then plays a radio broadcast of a military outpost that promises to have the answer to infection and wants Jim and Selena to come with him and Hannah to reach the source of the signal, and even though Selena doesn't really want to go with them because she thinks they can't offer much, Hannah manages to convince her otherwise. As they embark on their journey, they encounter an underground tunnel that looks specifically designed to kill them, and while Jim showcases caution by suggesting that they take a longer route to avoid the unknown dangers of the tunnel, Selena and Frank show the opposite and decide to drive through anyway. Surely nothing can go wrong here. When they come across a blockade of cars, Frank just rides across a ramp and drives over them, but unfortunately pops a tire when he gets to the end. Hannah then shows some machinery skills and lifts the car with the jack, but before they can put the spare tire onto the car, a horde of zombies enters the tunnel, activating clutch time. Showing some clutchness, Hannah replaces the tire and the group gets into the car before quickly driving away from the infected. Resourcefully, Selena tells them to stop at a grocery store to fill up on supplies before they continue on their journey, and Frank reveals his alcoholism through a disturbing familiarity with malt liquor. The group then stop to siphon some gas, allowing Jim to show off his reflexes when he whacks a zombie that tries to sneak up on him. For some reason though, the group decides to sleep outside as if the infected don't exist, and Jim becomes the face of peer pressure when he repeatedly tries to convince Frank to let Hannah have some Valium. And Frank eventually gives in.
Don't you know what crack does to the brain? You might as well be infected.
The group then arrive at the military blockade where the signal originated, but find it completely empty. While Selena wants to leave, Frank can't stomach the possibility that the outpost has failed as well, and searches all the vehicles to find any reason to cling on to hope. He then sees a crow biting a dead body on some pipes above him and kicks a door to get it to fly away. Unfortunately though, he experiences Cinema's unluckiest zombie infection when a drop of blood falls from the body straight into his eye. Damn, that sucks. Realizing he just got infected, he tells Hannah that he loves her before pushing her away from him as he begins uncontrollably spazzing out. As Selena tells Jim to kill Frank, Jim initially hesitates, but just when he moves to attack, some soldiers rise from the background and shoot Frank repeatedly, leaving the dead dad with a diplomatic daughter in A tier. The soldiers then take Jim, Selena, and Hannah to their real base nearby, where Major Henry West tells Jim that he does in fact have the answer to infection, though not in the way Jim thinks. The Major then shows Jim around the place, eventually leading him to an infected that he's locked up on the property to learn more about the virus, though he could definitely give it a much shorter leash. There's no way he's ever gonna get set free, right? At night, Major West reveals his indifference to the virus, telling his new guest that it's basically the same thing as before, just people killing people. Suddenly though, a siren blares and all the soldiers run to the courtyard and shoot some approaching infected, but when they return, one of the soldiers starts fondling Selena. Protectively, Jim attacks him, but the soldier overpowers Jim and throws him to the ground. Showing off his influence, Major West then commands the soldier to stop and orders all of them to leave and remove the bodies from the courtyard. Major West then talks to Jim alone and reveals his dastardliness when he tells him that he intentionally moved his group from the blockade, set the radio broadcast, and promised to give his soldiers some women, with Selena and Hannah too good to pass up. Oh no. Jim then finds Selena and Hannah as he rushes to escape, but before they can reach the exit, a soldier knocks Jim unconscious. A bit later, as Jim slowly recomposes himself, one of the soldiers, Sergeant Farrell, opposes the other soldier's sinister line of action and tries to fight off his comrades, but they overwhelm him and take him and Jim to a holding cell. There, Sergeant Farrell displays his optimism and deductive ability when he tells Jim that he thinks the infection hasn't spread beyond England and that they've just been quarantined, with the rest of the world living normally while they must fight for their lives. The next day, a couple of soldiers lead Jim and Farrell to a place with a pile of dead bodies. However, when one of them wants to stab their sergeant to death, the other one shoots him, causing a wrestling match between the two complicit comrades and giving Jim a chance to escape. As the two soldiers chase after him, Jim displays his cleverness and reveals that he hadn't actually left but had instead hidden himself among the bodies, tricking the soldiers into looking in the wrong direction and giving himself an opportunity to develop a plan to save Hannah and Selena. Meanwhile, the soldiers make their would-be concubines wear some dresses before they assault them, but in an effort to protect Hannah, Selena disarms one of the soldiers by kissing him and convinces him to allow her and Hannah to change into the dresses without the soldiers watching them. She then tries to give Hannah some Valium so she doesn't really feel whatever the soldiers plan to do, but as soon as Hannah ingests some of the pills, one of the soldiers knocks the drugs out of Selena's hands. A siren then blares at the blockade where Frank died, so Major West and another soldier go there to check it out. As they search the area, Jim reveals his sneakiness and kills the soldier before somehow placing his body into a car. A bit later, Major West finds the body and pulls it out of the car, but realizes that Jim has cut the wires and disabled the vehicle, so the Major starts running back to the mansion. Meanwhile, Jim makes use of a gun he found and shoots the chain off the captive zombie, releasing him from his imprisonment and allowing him to infect and kill the soldiers guarding Hannah and Selena, who run away during the chaos. When one of these new zombies gets into a room though, Hannah shows some resolve and hangs on the back of a mirror to stay undetected. As Jim continues searching for his people, a soldier takes Selena hostage, but Jim jumps down from the ceiling like fucking Batman and starts violently bashing the soldier's head against the wall before inserting his thumbs into his eyes as the life fades from his body. body. Thinking he's an infected, Selena grabs a machete and prepares to kill Jim, who trolls and steps towards her like a rageful killer instead of talking like a normal person. Selena, though, hesitates to kill Jim, unlike how quickly she killed Mark earlier, so Jim finally speaks and the two of them feel comfortable enough to make out even after all the craziness that's happened, but showing some caution and thinking he may be infected, Hannah comes in and hits Jim with a bottle. Luckily, it doesn't do much, and the group runs to a vehicle in the driveway. As Hannah gets into the driver's seat, Jim and Selena find Major West sitting in the back, and the Major gets some revenge and shoots Jim. But thanks to the Major's poor conviction, the gunshot doesn't go into any vital areas, and Jim survives. Showing some boldness, Hannah then drives backwards towards the mansion and lets a strong-ass zombie break through the window and pull the Major out of the car so he can beat him to death, leaving the sinister soldier with some sketchy sanity in A tier. The troublesome trio then escape the military base and Selena heals Jim from his gunshot. 28 days later, they place some blankets in the yard as a jet flies by, hopefully saving them from the nightmare they just lived through and placing the traumatized triplets in S tier and A tier. But that's it. The average rank of this cast was A tier. Very high collection of characters. With its grungy aesthetic and unique enemies, 28 Days Later remains one of the most thrilling zombie movies around, even 2 decades after its release. Thanks for watching.